Hey everybody, Kyle here from GoFilmReviews.com and Kyle and Nick on Film on the YouTubes. And today we're going to talk why I love Cloud Atlas. That's right, we're finally going to get into this one, my favorite film of the last decade. Let's begin. Hey guys, Kyle here from Kyle and Nick on Film on the YouTubes, and we're talking Cloud Atlas today, my favorite film of the last decade. How did this come up exactly? Well, back in late December, early January. I don't remember when we did this so much, but I did an episode of St. Paul Filmcast where Nick Plotachuk and I talked about our top 10 favorite films of the decade. A very tough list to go through, and any of the films that I listed and many more could have been my favorite film of the decade, and they might shift around a lot. But for me, no film exemplified or inspired me to do some of the things that I work on, like Cloud Atlas from 2012. The film has three directors: Tom Tykwer, Lana Wachowski, and Lily Wachowski. So, if you guys don't know what Tom Tykwer did, The International, his most recent film, I think, was A Hologram for the King. And then the Wachowski siblings did Speed Racer, Jupiter Ascending. I love the Wachowskis. I think they're amazing filmmakers. So here's kind of how the show works. We're going to talk a little bit about the background of the film, give you the 5 biggest reasons that I can come up with as to why I love it, and then some trivia for you too as we wind back down. And during this time too, I want you to give me your thoughts and opinions, what you think about Cloud Atlas. If you hated it, that's cool, but just let me know. I'd like to know your reasons behind not liking it because I think it's kind of fun. And if you haven't seen it, this is my plea to you. During this time when a lot of us are spending more times inside, this would be a great time to visit a near 3-hour movie. So real quick, it's tough to give a quick byline of what the plot of Cloud Atlas is, but I'll just give it out as it's a tapestry of 6 different stories set across 6 different time periods, with the main cast portraying multiple characters spread across time, showing that each decision that a character makes ripples across time, basically shaping the future. And they're 6 different stories. They go all the way back to 1849 and all the way forward to about 2321, or 106 years after the fall of man. So what interests me most about this film, because I went into it going, I was a big fan of the Wachowskis. I didn't really know a lot about Tom Tykwer. I still don't really know a ton about him, but I love the Wachowskis' filmmaking style and the kind of films that they choose to make, and so I was really excited to see this film, and knowing that we get to have Tom Hanks in a science fiction film portraying 6 different characters is really cool. It was a really neat idea for me, so I absolutely could not wait for this film to drop, and I saw it in a crowded theater with 3 different people. So and across that 3 hours, we shared a lot of moments in this theater. Actually, a couple of us were sitting pretty close to each other, and we actually kind of banded together watching the film and really got through it together. It was kind of a cool experience. But real quick, let's jump right into our reasons for loving this film, or at least mine. Number 1 reason on the list: the individual stories themselves. We'll get into in a second in kind of how the film all fits together, but really, at its simplest, it's 6 different stories. Yeah, they jump cut around a lot. You spend time in different timelines. Some of the jumps are literally 3 seconds, and then some of them spend a few minutes in each time period and then jump back around again. It can get a little weird. I mean, a little confusing, you might even say, too. My wife is not a big fan of this film because she kind of has trouble jumping around in the different time periods. But if you really break down the 6 different stories, each of them is so universally different, and I think that's what's cool to see is you've got our present day 2012 with the strange ordeal of Timothy Cavendish, played by Jim Broadbent. It's a straight up comedic, maybe darkly comedic, but mostly just straight comedy about a man who becomes famous overnight, makes some mistakes, and owes money to the wrong people, and so he's just on the run kind of from his horrible past mistakes, and it becomes this kind of prison break movie set in an old folks home at one point. It's a really cool, fun little story. You also get way back in 1936, you get a love story about a musician who is not able to be with the one he loves, and so he goes off to kind of pursue his dream of creating great music, and it doesn't really go as well as he wants it to go. You can jump to the 70s with the Louisa Reyes mystery. Louisa Rey is played by Halle Berry. and she's a woman who is trying to uncover basically a strange, a strange mystery surrounding a oil magnate kind of person, and kind of just how she navigates the 70s, being being a female reporter, but also a black woman who's working on this stuff, and kind of like the time periods that shift around in there. And then you jump all the way forward to the 2300s with Tom Hanks playing a, kind of like tribal, wild man, and like these groups of people that have all been after the apocalypse has set in, and they speak in this truncated language, which can get a little bit much. Like, just each of the different stories has such a cool idea. Like, I think any one of these 6 films I would watch as a complete 90-minute movie, but having them truncated down to this like 28 to 30-minute runtime, and then jamming them together and weaving them throughout, how each story bleeds into the other one, is pretty cool for me. So any of the stories are absolutely enjoyable on their own, and that's the number one reason why I like Cloud Atlas, because in some ways it's an anthology kind of, but all the stories are mixed together. It's kind of like you took 6 different puzzles, took them apart, and shuffled all the pieces together, and then tried to fit it into a new way. It could be like an anthology in terms of like a creep show or the VHS series, but each of the stories is jammed together and mixed up, and it kind of creates this cool, this cool breathing poetry kind of thing. So that's number one reason, the individual stories themselves, Cloud Atlas. Number 2 thing that I love about Cloud Atlas is the multiple interpretations of the film. Now, granted, let's take this broader sense out. You can enjoy each of these stories individually, but I love the way that they are molded together, and the way that each story actually don't rub on that, bud. The way that each story kind of influences the other too. You can interpret this film in a number of different ways, and that's kind of cool, because looking at it based on the book by David Mitchell, there's multiple interpretations, but the way it was created, the way it was filmed, and the way that it was performed adds new layers to this. So you can enjoy the individual stories flat out. If that's all you like about it, then that's great. But you can also follow the character with the birthmark from the beginning to the end. Each of the 6 stories has a different character with a birthmark on their body, and you could be interested in how each of those time periods influences, and their decisions influence their outcomes as you go through the 6 timelines. You can look at it that way. You can also look at it by focusing on a character, a specific character, like Tom Hanks, and what he goes through in the 6 different time periods, influencing himself further down the line. And there is a through line for that based on how the Wachowskis and Tickver cast the film, was that they actually placed this actor into 6 different time periods, and the way that those decisions and the relationships that he carries bleed through time. Specifically, his interactions with Halle Berry. If you look at what kind of a character Tom Hanks is playing in each of the storylines, and his interaction or lack of interaction with Halle Berry's character, how it changes who he is and the decisions that he makes and the things that he deals with based on his choices in life. It's a really tremendous way to cast things out. And I think for the most part, I didn't struggle a lot with the characters, with the cast playing multiple roles with that, because I think that's something that a lot of people could be concerned about. But watching it through that way really helps influence where things are going. And then also how each time period bleeds into the next, so that each of the stories actually is being passed down through time. So the first story, set on the ship heading for home, is actually accounted in journal entries that we read in the second story. And the second story is influenced further because of letters that this man wrote to his lover, and that passes down to the next story. So each of them actually is passed down very much like how we pass down our legends, and you can look at it in that way too, and see how each of these main characters has really influenced the others just by their living. And it's really fun to uncover the different onions layers to it, like really get into it. Every time I watch the film, I pick a couple different characters and I watch how they weave through in and out with each other, because it's really fascinating. So check that out as well. Number 2 reason, the multiple interpretations of the film. Number 3 reason why I love Cloud Atlas is the cast. It's expansive cast. Like I said, Tom Hanks plays 6 different characters. You get 6 different great performances from him. Sure, a couple are really small characters, some are really major characters, but it's really cool to watch the cast interact. Halle Berry, I've never been a giant fan of Halle Berry, and it's not that she's a bad actress for me, but she's never been one that's really wowed me. She wowed me in this movie. Jim Broadbent, who's again like a very underrated character actor, he gets to lead one of these stories. He gets to have a really integral part in a couple of them. Hugo Weaving, who again like he's one of the few characters or one of the few actors in this film who plays only villainous characters the whole time, and he's brilliant at it every single time. So Hugo Weaving is amazing to have in here. Jim Sturgis, who I really felt was going to pop more, and again, not to fault the actor, I'm sure he's done a lot of great work. I really like 21. I really like Across the Universe, but Jim Sturgis didn't pop in the same way I expected him to. But he's phenomenal in this movie. It kind of boils down to as well, like there's the argument, and I think that maybe where some of the controversy came is that because you have these characters portraying different people throughout time, there comes that controversy about how you're portraying people. There is some Asian face work done in the film, but there's also some white face in some ways too. There's some like characters playing different races, playing different genders, playing different aspects of each other, and I can see the frustration and the anger behind some of that controversy. But I would ask you, if you haven't seen the film, to at least watch it and see why it's done that way. Halle Berry at one point plays a Jewish woman, and then she plays a black woman, and then I believe she plays in Neo Soul in the future time period, she plays someone of Asian descent. But then you kind of get that backwards and forwards too. So I can completely get if that doesn't vibe with you, but I would ask you to at least check the film out before you do that, because I don't think, personally speaking, as of course a straight white male who's never really been attacked for who he is, I would tell you that I didn't feel at least like the film was demeaning any of the people that it was portraying. And I could be wrong. So if that's the way you feel about it, please comment below. Let me know your thoughts on that kind of stuff, because I didn't feel that way. But again, I'm also a straight white male, and we're not usually, that doesn't really affect in a lot of ways. Whereas, we aren't persecuted in the same way that other races are, that other genders are, that other sexual orientations are. I'm not. So maybe I'm wrong about that. But personally, I didn't feel like it was done in a disrespectful way. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on it as well. So that's number 3, the reason why I love Cloud Atlas, the cast, the expansive, amazing cast that's in this film. Number 4, the editing. The editing of this film is done very differently than the editing of the book. The editing of the book is very much, it's chronological in some way, and then it kind of dechronologizes. So it's the first half of the first story, then the first half of the second story, then the first half of the third, first half of the fourth, first half of the fifth, first half of the sixth, then the second half of the sixth, and then the second half of the fifth, second half of the fourth, and so it kind of goes backwards then as it makes its way out. And I think that serves a book really well, especially when you get an abundance of characters getting drawn into it. But I really like the way the editing is done in this film version, because I think that they tended to notice, the directing and editing team tended to notice that there was ripples and permeations not only forward in time but backward in time too. Certain things that happened perfectly in sync. A character mentions opening a door and seeing something amazing in one timeline, and then the next scene that they utilize is someone opening a door in another timeline, and it kind of gives you again that like living, breathing poetry feel. But then you also get character interactions and how they're different in one time period or another. And I think that's kind of cool, because they'll pair up 2 characters and give you one moment with them in one timeline and one moment with them in another, and so you get to see those the comparing and contrasting of that as well. I also really like how they take moments to showcase things that existed in one time period and how they're being utilized again. One of the mansions that's in the 1936 timeline is an old folks home in the 2012 timeline. So it showcases you too how these people interweave throughout each other's worlds, even if they're not technically living alongside each other, that every action has a reaction, and that every set piece that could be utilized or some of the props get reused as the film goes on as well. So the editing kind of highlights that for you too, and it lets you know about all the different ways that these people have intersected through each other's lives. It's a really capable and interesting editing, and I can see it not being for everybody, but I absolutely adored it. Number 5, though. Number 5 reason why I love Cloud Atlas is the ambition. This is one of the most expensive independent films ever made. Yes, it was like basically put together with a bunch of different investors. Warner Brothers did the release of the film, but they didn't want to put in all this money, so the directors all took a cut or loss of their pay, pooled their own money in, got other people involved to make this ambitious, sweeping film. And as I said before, for this series, what I do is I pick movies that either didn't get great reviews or didn't make a lot of money or got a lot of Razzie noms and stuff like that. And this is one film that it was made with a $130 million budget. So it needed to make at least probably about 300, maybe more than that to break even. And it made 146. So this movie lost a significant amount of money. It is one of the biggest films I've ever seen. So even if you don't like the movie, the ambition of this film cannot be understated. It cannot be overstated. Like it's just, it has to be like felt. This is a brilliant, breathing film that every time I watch it, some new part of it captures me and changes the way I think. And I'll be honest with you, I've watched this film probably 100 times, or at least had it on in my house 100 times. And every time I finish the film, something new captures me. And I was brought to tears by the end this time around because of where I'm at in my life and how these characters at the end of their journey have changed and evolved and really pushed forward the narrative into the next time. It changed me again. Like it just brings me down and breaks me in the best possible way. And that's because of the ambitious scope of it. We have a science fiction film. We have a comedy. We have a romance. We have a mystery film. We have a apocalypse film. And we have a, sailing adventure movie. So many elements thrown in at once, and you'd think that they can't work together and they can't mesh. And it's really the beauty in how the comedy piece reflects with the apocalypse piece and how the romance affects with the mystery. And it's so amazing to see how these things kind of interweave through each other. And it's so much fun to watch. So check this movie out if you haven't. Like I said, guys, comment below. Let me know your thoughts on the film if you've seen it. If you haven't, check it out. I think it's actually streaming for free on IMDb's TV video service, which is a free service you can check out movies on. If you haven't checked it out, I would highly advise you to do so because it got passed over, and I think what surprises me most about the film is the people that I wouldn't have expected to love it, that love it, and some of the people that you would expect to love it that maybe wouldn't have. So I think it's a film that tests people and that it's not for everyone, but I think it's worth your time at least once. So there you go, my 5 reasons for loving Cloud Atlas. The individual stories, the multiple interpretations of the film, the expansive cast, the editing, and the ambition. Those are my 5 reasons for loving this film, but I got a whole lot more than that too. So I can't thank you guys enough for joining me for that. Leave your comments below with your thoughts on the film once you've seen it, because I'm really interested in seeing multiple interpretations of what you thought of the film. And if you guys are interested as well, we got a Patreon. There's a link down in the description below. Please give us a check out on that. We got some tiers as low as $1 a month, and you can help influence some of the different films that Nick Polatichuk and I will be talking about in future episodes of Kyle and Nick on Film when we get that show back up and going again. If you can't contribute in terms of a monetary help, then do what else you can. Give us a like, subscribe to the video, drop a comment below. You wouldn't believe how helpful that kind of stuff can be. Share the video across your social media. We love getting that chance to talk with other people about films. The best way to do that is to share this stuff out and let people know about it. So thank you guys for that. All right, I got to do this because I got some time. We're going to do 60 seconds of trivia about Cloud Atlas. So stay with me here. Let's get started in 3, 2, 1, let's go. All right, this is, like I said before, one of the most expensive independent films ever made. Natalie Portman is actually the one who gave the book to the Wachowskis. Originally, she wanted to play Son Mi in the film adaptation, but it didn't end up happening because she got pregnant. Lily and Lana Wachowski did the 1849, 2144, and 2322 segments. Tom Tykwer actually directed 1936, 1973, and 2012 segments. So they each took 3 of the stories to do by themselves and then put them all together. Tom Hanks actually said this is one of the few films that he actually re-watches of his own. He doesn't do that a lot with those other movies, but he did it with this one. The jewel that Tom Hanks is coveting in the opening of the film in the first storyline is actually one that he's holding on to at the end, and it kind of showcases, again, that through line of things rippling across time. of the 13 cast members featured on the poster, there are a combined 61 characters in the film. So each person plays about 4 to 5 different characters here. Some of them actually playing all 6 in all 6 different time periods, even if it's just a quick little snapshot. Fun facts, Tom Hanks actually collects typewriters. He has over 80 in his collection. It's insane. I wonder if he's typed something on each of them. Halle Berry is actually the first Oscar winner of all time to attend and accept a Razzie Award in the same for a different role. Check it out. So there you guys have it. There's some different fun trivia for the film. Thanks for indulging me on that. Like I said, thanks for joining me. We'll see you guys next time. I'll pick another wild movie that maybe some of you will disagree with me for. Thanks a bunch. We'll see you guys.